After playing Mario games for basically over 3 decades now, I'm surprised that I still discover new things within them that I had never seen before. Whether that's a good or bad thing, it's still a huge reason why playing through these experiences seem to never get old. Through the several videos I've made over the years, I've discovered certain things that just get passed over and end up being avoided / forgotten for one reason or another, giving me the idea to create the least used things in every Super Mario game. I'll explain exactly what these are, where they show up, and why they make it into this video. And oh yeah, before I get started, my name is Copycat, and if you haven't yet, then please subscribe to my channel, hitting that bell to stay notified when I upload new videos. The very first game to be released in the mainline series is Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1985, where I'd have to say, by far the things that are used the least in this one are the Buzzy Beetles. Even though these foes are similar in many ways to the Koopas, as their shells can be used as projectiles to defeat other foes, they just don't appear as frequently, and when they do, they're usually in spots where they're easier to just avoid them than to bonk them. I'd have to say, if you told me to name the original enemies in this first game, 9 times out of 10 I would have forgotten this baddie, as really it's just a very bland looking creature that's not memorable at all. The second game in the series to come out, at least in Western markets, is Super Mario Bros. 2 in 1988, where if the Koopa was a main staple in that first title, the foe is basically non-existent in this entry. What you can find, however, is its shell, which can be plucked from a blade of grass from the ground, being able to be thrown forward to defeat enemies, although they don't bounce back and forth off of walls, which is a letdown. On top of this, they only show up in 3 levels, 1 in 1-1, 2 of them can be found in 3-3, and 1 in World 5-3. Although they also can be found down most jars, but are sort of useless as they're only there to kill one single enemy. The other thing that I would barely use are the stopwatches, which freeze all enemies on stage for a limited amount of time, allowing you to progress forward with no pressure. Now, on paper, this sounds great, but there's a huge downside as it only triggers if you pick up 4 large veggies in a stage, where then the 5th one will contain the watch that stops time. Because of this mechanic, that means this can't occur in every single level, where more likely than not you'll probably won't even go after this, as it's not exactly the most beneficial thing, and in the end probably will just waste your time searching for each one. The final of the original trilogy, Super Mario Bros. 3, came out for the NES in 1988, having a bunch of items and power-ups that are barely used when you're playing through the game, starting with my favorite in the Goomba shoe. Even though this is one of the most fun things to use in this title, it unfortunately only shows up in World 5-3, where you can knock the Goomba out of it by bonking from underneath using a block, where then when you're in it, you'll see that you're impervious from attacks from below. What really sucks is that you can't carry this item onto other levels, as if you complete the stage with it, it just disappears, giving you nothing. Next are a bunch of items that can be used in the overworld map, although to be honest, I rarely found myself taking advantage of them at all, to the point where I didn't even know what they did until I became a Mario YouTuber and wanted to learn everything I could about the Mushroom Kingdom. Now of course these are described in the game's manual, but I got this game secondhand with no access to the internet at that time, so I had to learn myself how these worked, and unfortunately at that time I was pretty young, so I really didn't know what was going on. The items I'm talking about specifically are the anchor that's mainly found in white toad houses, which, when used, stop any airship from traveling throughout the overworld if you lose a life in them, the Juggum Cloud that, when worn, allows you to skip 1 level, the hammer that lets you break a rock that opens up an alternate path you can take, and the music box that puts any overworld enemies to sleep, so you don't have to face off against them in their small arena stages. I think it's just the fact that these items are necessary to use to beat the game, which is why they show up in this video. Although, they are helpful in finding every single secret. Up next is Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels, which was exclusive at first to Japan, and didn't come out in North America until the Super Mario All-Stars SNES collection, having 2 things I can't say I use too often, starting with the Poison Mushroom, which makes its debut in this title. When you collect this power-up, it actually just deals you damage, even killing you if you're in small Mario form. So if you do happen to release them from a block, avoiding them is key, as this game is already hard enough as it is without them. It's pretty obvious that this would be the least used thing, as if you use them, you just could die. The others that I need to mention are the fact that this game has wrong warps. meaning that certain warps actually send you backwards to previous worlds. Something you really don't want to happen, as this would be a major setback in this tough experience. This can only occur in World 3-1, using the spring to jump over the flagpole that eventually takes you to the warp that leads you to World 1. This also can happen in World 8-1, by going down this pipe that leads to an underwater section, where at its end you'll find a warp leading to World 5. A huge setback that at that point I'd probably just quit out of frustration. The first handheld game of the franchise is Super Mario Land that was released for the Game Boy in 1989, having one object that isn't used too often as it's very well hidden in the elevator blocks. Now when I say hidden, I literally mean invisible, as you have to bonk the block to have them appear and then ride on top of them to propel yourself to the top of the screen so you can find coins and sub-areas that lead to more coins. These can be uncovered in World 1-3, basically right at the start, and in World 3-2, needing to break these bricks so you then can trigger it and use it to your advantage, even if that's just collecting coins or traveling safely for a small section. Next up is Super Mario World that came out for the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991, having a lot of things that are underutilized, beginning with the Lakitu Cloud that you can use to ride around different courses. These Koopas need to be knocked out of their clouds with either a flick of your cape or via Fireball, where then the cloud can be available to jump in and ride around the stage as if you're flying. Unfortunately, where these show up, there isn't much to find, so going through the hassle to get them just isn't even worth it. One collectible that's so well hidden, I can't even say I ever came across them, are the 3-up moons, that when gotten, gives you 3 lives for your troubles. Most of these are super out of the way, needing to fly using the cape feather to get them. Where honestly, without a guide, I have no idea how people came across them, but in the 90s without internet, people must have just been really bored and explored everywhere. One thing I still don't believe is real, and makes me feel like I'm hallucinating every time I come across them, are the Yoshi clouds, that when spawned in, release bonus coins for you to collect. To get these to spawn, you need to have Yoshi, and eat 2 pink colored fruit in a single stage. However, this really is only a thing in Cookie Mountain, Forest of Illusion 1 and 3, and in the special Groovy stage. And also, by the way, this does not show up in the manual, so I'm sure this was a pretty big surprise for the first people who found them. The second handheld game to come out in the mainline series is Super Mario Land 2, the 6 golden coins, also for the Game Boy, containing 1 power-up and 1 enemy I think we should look at, starting with the power-up one in the 3-up part. Obviously, if this was a common thing found in the actual levels, then this would be used by everyone who comes across them. However, they unfortunately can only be gotten in the crane bonus minigame that's triggered by hitting the bell at the end of the stage. On top of that, there's no guarantee you'll even get the heart, as the crane mechanics are kinda finicky, so more often than not you'll get something you don't want. The enemies / I guess friends I want to discuss are the Heavy Zeds, that are found only in the boss stage of the Tree Zone, acting like moving platforms as their heads have a flat spot that you can stand on. I'm surprised these weren't used more, as they're actually a fun thing to platform and maneuver on, but I do understand the restrictions of the console probably held them back, so I'll give it a pass. The other game released for the SNES is the follow-up to Super Mario World, here titled Yoshi's Island, where I want to start things off by looking at 2 ghostly platforms that are only found in certain sections of one level they show up in, which is the Liquid Lift of World 1-8 and the Support Ghost of World 5-4. The Liquid Lift is contained to one room, where you need to ride it while dodging the water spouted from the hilarious sprayfish. And the Support Ghost is contained to one long hallway over a void, needing to platform on it while it moves, collecting any secrets you can along the way. I also need to mention a transformation that can only be found in secret spots of some levels in the submarine, which allows Yoshi to travel more efficiently underwater, as well as fire out missiles at any foes. These can be found through the secret door of World 3-3 reached by helicopter that leads to a sub-area with a bunch of coins, through this hidden door of World 3-4 that leads to a sub-area with a bunch of red coins, and finally, through a hidden pipe behind the rock, activated by hitting the invisible switch, leading again to a sub-area with a bunch of red coins. Now, getting to these transformations is not necessary to complete the levels and beat the game, so there's definitely a chance you missed out on using these. The first in the series with gameplay based within the 3D realm is Super Mario 64 for the N64, having 3 separate things I want to mention that definitely would be considered being the least used, starting with the hoot owl friend found only in Womp's Fortress. Actually, it's located only within this tree, where you can jump to it and hold B, where then it can carry you upwards and allow you to reach higher up areas in the course. I'm actually surprised they didn't add it to any other stage, but I guess it would be too cheap as it would allow you to reach certain spots way quicker than intended. Next is a sort of obstacle in the gusts of wind, which usually hinder you by pushing you off ledges while knocking your hat off in the process. However, there's one spot in Tall Mountain where you can actually use it to your advantage. This is literally right near the beginning of the level where you spawn in, where if you jump here and take it upwards, you can skip a sizable portion of the mountain, which is definitely useful. And not too many people know about it either, as it isn't exactly apparent. Finally are 2 items that I can't say I ever picked up willingly in playing Super Mario 64, in the 2 types of crates, in the normal one and the crazed one. The normal ones are, well, just normal, being used as a weapon to throw at enemies to defeat them. The crazed ones are truly crazed, as they cause you to bounce out of control, where they eventually explode, at least giving you coins. The next game also based within the 3D realm is Super Mario Sunshine for the GameCube, where here I want to look at 2 items that were put in the game that allow your FLUDD to replenish its water supply in the water bottles and the barrels. The water bottles are very strange, as in advertising for this game, they seem to be everywhere. But in actuality, in the game, they're only found in one place, in the Boo Boss Battle of Serena Beach. I'm gonna have to assume Nintendo removed them to save file space, as they probably discovered players didn't run out of water that fast, and there were plenty of other sources, other than in that specific boss fight, so it kinda makes sense, I guess. The barrel, on the other hand, is at least sort of useful, specifically during Episode 6 of Serena Beach, where you had to clean up all the goop, and during Episode 4 of Pianta Village, where you can quickly cool down the enraged Chain Chomp and guide it to its bath. As you can see, it spits out quite a bit of water when you throw it, but honestly, I don't even think I ever picked these things up once when I was playing, as you can complete those 2 challenges with just your FLUDD. Although, I guess it makes that harder, I'm not sure. The franchise would eventually return to its 2D roots with the release of New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo DS, having 3 things I could find that aren't used too much, starting with the manholes. These are only in World 2-3, with the obstacles reminding me a lot of the ones from Super Mario Sunshine, needing to ground pound them to enter the area below, although you can't go back up through them, so it's really a one-way ticket. I'd have to say that these really don't work well in the 2D realm, so I'm not surprised they don't show up much, as they just don't add too much to your experience. The second is a really strange block only found in World 6-3 in the spiked question mark ones, which, as the name suggests, have spikes on one side that rotate, so if you aren't careful, you'll take damage if you bonk them wrong. These do go very slow, so I can't say there's really that much risk involved. Usually just giving you a coin or power-up, so it's not like they're that good either. The third and final things are the incredibly odd bell-shaped contraptions of the World 2 tower, needing to use them as sort of moving platforms by wall jumping between the 2 sides to progress upwards. There's a chance you miss these, as they're located in a sub-area in a pretty hidden spot in the stage, where really I didn't even know about them until filming this video. Up next is the space-based Super Mario Galaxy Wii entry, where there's one thing that instantly comes to mind that I wish was used way more in the Red Star power-up, that when collected actually allows you to fly. You first come across this in the Gate Galaxy during its purple coin mission, needing to use the power-up to fly around the small planet and collect 100 of the things before time runs out. Now this is fun, but unfortunately it's the only real level it shows up in. However, after completing the Gate Galaxy, it does at least become available to use in the Comet Observatory Overworld, where you can at least use it to explore and find certain secrets you otherwise wouldn't. But realistically, we just wanted more of it. The second installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii in 2009, where to kick things off, I want to look at the Mini Mushroom power-up, which for some reason is in this game, but doesn't show up much. Honestly, this is one of my least favorite power-ups in the entire series, as I just found it felt awkward to use, and I hate how it always puts you at one shot. Although, I may be wrong, so I'd love to know what you think about it in the comments below. Next, I'm going to look at the jump blocks, which are basically just music note blocks from Super Mario Bros. 3. Found here only in World 7.5, even though I feel like they could have been used much more. Also, I'm not sure why they decided to change the classic design, which I feel like was a big mistake, switching them to a green checkerboard pattern which just looks awful. Lastly, I want to talk about the Super Guide block, which is this game's version of the assist block, where here, if you lose 8 lives in a single level, it will appear. This assist tool triggers a CPU Luigi to come on screen and shows you how to complete the stage you're in, where at the end of it, it will give you the option to skip the level or try things out for yourself. You can jump in at any time to take over for Luigi and finish things. However, there's some bad downsides to this tool, as the level will remain red in the overworld, meaning you technically didn't complete it, and this will tarnish your save files unless you go back and do things properly. The second installment of the space-based Wii entry, Super Mario Galaxy 2, came out for the system in 2010, having one power-up that seems to be basically non-existent in this game in the Rainbow Star. If you didn't know, this literally is just this sub-series version of the Superstar, which was much more prevalent in the first entry, where here it pretty much only shows up in the teleporter sub-areas, where you need to clear all of the enemies to gain prizes. It does, however, sometimes feature in Prankster Comets, most notably in the Yoshi Star and Shiverburn ones, but it doesn't appear much during the normal Galaxy levels, which is a bit of a head-scratcher. Nintendo would perfectly blend aspects of our mustachioed heroes' 2D and 3D realms with the release of Super Mario 3D Land for the 3DS, where once again, I'm going to mention the Poison Mushroom, making its first appearance here since the Lost Levels. Even though this is years later, it still acts the exact same, damaging you on contact and even killing you if you're in Small Mario 4. So trust me when I say you'll definitely be avoiding these. This entry also contains assist blocks in the Invincibility Leaf that appears if you've died 5 times in a stage, and the incredibly OP P-Wing block, that when bonked, takes you directly to the flagpole, skipping over the entire stage. If you're a real gamer, then there's no way you would even use these power-ups, let alone come across them in the first place. So I think they're perfect to show off in this video. The third installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the 3DS in 2012, where the one thing I really only want to look at is a type of level I loathed and intentionally skipped over every time it showed up in the rainbow ones. These become unlocked if you end a stage with the last 2 digits being the same as the world you're currently in, if that makes sense. Acting as a bonus area which just allows you to collect oodles of coins. There's no risk involved in these easy stages, just mindless coin collection which honestly isn't fun at all. Before we move on, this game also features an assist block that only shows up if you've died 5 times in a stage, allowing you to become White Tanuki Mario. In this state you're invincible, your P meter fills up way more quickly, and you can even run and stand on water, which is a bit weird. This game's pretty easy, so there's really only a few spots this might happen to you, but if you're a gamer, I doubt it. The final installment of the new Super Mario Bros. Sub-series came out for the Wii U in 2012, where there's one type of Yoshi I completely forgot existed in the glowing baby ones. These spawn from glowing Yoshi eggs that are only found in darkness stages like Fire Snake Cavern and Which Way Labyrinth, acting as a light to guide you and ensure you don't run into any hazards. Not sure why this can't grow into a full-fledged Yoshi, as I feel like that is a missed opportunity that could have been really cool. I also want to talk about the p-acorn, which is a super rare power-up that you can barely find anywhere, only being able to be collected through capturing Nabbit or by defeating Bowser. When you're equipped with this, you then have the ability to jump and glide in mid-air indefinitely, which really can be useful as there's many stages in this game with secrets hidden in crazy areas, where using this scarce thing will really help you find them. Mario will continue his 3D adventures in Super Mario 3D World for the Wii U, where there's one sort of power-up I can say isn't used as much as I'd like in the Gooba Mask, only found in select stages like Sunshine Seaside and Hands-on Hall. I guess it's the fact you're not supposed to engage with foes when wearing this disguise, which is why it's not used much, as this becomes kind of boring. Plus, this is kind of expanded better on in Super Mario Odyssey where you capture foes, so I guess there's that instead. Another power-up that really isn't used much in this game is the Superstar. Once a staple of the series, now only showing up in a handful of stages. It really only features most in Coin Heavens, found up the Cloud Cannons, but those are very contained spaces that end super quickly.
Lastly, I want to mention 2 extremely hidden warp pipes that allow you to move forward an entire world, being so secretive that most people who play this game don't even know that they exist. The first is found in World 1-2, needing to be in cat form as you have to climb up this wall and into a hidden cubby containing the pipe, where taking it will transport you directly to World 2. The second is in World 4-2, again needing to be in cat form, having to climb up this wall near the roulette block to find the pipe, where entering it will take you right to World 5. Now these aren't as drastic of warps as in past games, but still something nice, especially if you come across them accidentally. Up next is the absolutely massive Super Mario Odyssey Nintendo Switch entry, containing one capturable foe that really doesn't show up much, which is a shame in the Charging Chucks. This American football-like creature only appears in the Moon Caves of the Moon Kingdom and a sub-area of the Rune Kingdom, where when captured, you're able to charge forward and bulldoze anything in your way. This was one of my favorite things from Super Mario World, and oddly it seems like it's almost been forgotten by Nintendo for some reason or another, because they really don't put them in Mario games anymore. For what reason, I don't know. One friend that I'm really disappointed doesn't show up more is Yoshi, who makes his first appearance on top of Peach's castle, then only shows up in a few sub-areas on the dark side, as well as playing a huge part in the darker sides along Journey's End. However, these are all spots that become unlocked after you complete the game, meaning Yoshi doesn't show up in the main story at all. A huge letdown that I'm surprised Nintendo let happen, as at this point Yoshi is a staple and a fan fave. Next to be released is the Bowser's Fury game mode that was bundled alongside the re-release of Super Mario 3D World for the Switch, where there's one power-up that's not even available in the main game, and you have to use an amiibo to unlock it, and the Invincibility Belt. To spawn this in, you need to use your Cat Mario amiibo that lets you access this power-up really as many times as you want, essentially being the first time Nintendo introduced a win-to-pay DLC mechanic into one of their games, which is kind of upsetting. Also quickly, I should talk about the Superstar, which in this game comes only in Coin Heavens, but can be brought into Lake Lapcat if you use any Super Mario-based amiibo. This can be useful to collect certain cat shines or fight certain bosses. Although I have to say, they aren't really necessary in this game, as there are other things you can use to your advantage instead. The final game we're going to look at in this video, and the most recent to come out in the series, is Super Mario Bros. Wonder for the Nintendo Switch, where some of the least used things from it are certain badges you can achieve that are supposed to help you during your gameplay, but really, some are just useless. The ones I personally never have equipped are the Dolphin Kick badge that's supposed to help you swim faster, the coin reward one that just rewards you with more coins, the Auto Super Shroom which just allows you to start a course with the power-up, the add exclamation blocks that adds extra blocks to each stage that can give you items or act as platforms, the rhythm jump one that rewards you with coins each time you jump to the beat of the music, and the sound off badge, which changes all the default noises and sounds to now be made by a random person, which is weird, just listen. Alright, that's gonna be it for today's video, guys. I really hope you did enjoy this one. If you did, please leave a like, comment below what you thought about it, and of course subscribe to my channel. Also, please go follow my Instagram at CopyCatGamer. There I'll put some cool clips and items for a collection that you won't see anywhere else. Hope you guys all have a good day, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye!